Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a fascinating journey, really digging into a powerful verse from the Christian scriptures. It's Psalm 91, specifically verse 13. It says, "You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent." Our mission really is to unpack what this verse is understood to mean within a certain spiritual framework, especially how it's seen as offering a perspective on, well, overcoming challenges today. We'll explore the symbolism behind these creatures. Lions, cobras, delve into this concept of authority that comes up in the sources, and share some really quite remarkable stories from around the globe that seem to illustrate these ideas.
Yeah, what's really insightful, I think, from the material we reviewed is how these, ancient words are believed to connect with everyday struggles. Whether it's things like professional hurdles or maybe personal conflicts, even those bigger societal pressures we all feel sometimes. This verse, in this view, offers a kind of framework for confronting what are seen as both, well, visible and invisible threats.
So whether you're tuning in maybe just to understand different perspectives, or perhaps you're looking for, I don't know, fresh takes on resilience, this deep dive should be interesting for you. Get ready for a journey into ideas of boldness, discernment, and exploring what our sources call a unique kind of delegated authority. Okay, let's get into it.
Right. Let's start with the core imagery first. It's really key.
Right.
The material we looked at emphasizes that the lion and the cobra or serpent, they aren't just literal animals here. Within the spiritual tradition, they're understood as powerful metaphors, symbols for different kinds of danger, different kinds of adversity.
Okay, metaphors. So the lion, what does that typically represent in this context?
Well, the lion usually symbolizes things like raw power, aggression, maybe intimidation. Think about something that, roars loudly in your life, a really daunting challenge maybe, something that feels like it's trying to overpower you.
And then the cobra or the serpent, that sounds different, more subtle. Exactly. That represents things like deception, fear, those kind of hidden threats. These are the dangers that might sort of creep up on you or maybe operate behind the scenes, things that undermine your confidence perhaps or your choices without you even realizing it at first.
Interesting distinction.
That's right. And within this specific belief system, both are presented as standing for what they call spiritual attacks or maybe significant personal challenges. Even these broader things termed cultural strongholds that individuals or, whole communities might feel they're confronting.
It makes sense how these metaphors then get reinforced elsewhere in the scriptures that our source material points to.
Yeah.
Like Luke 10:19, which says, "I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy." Or Mark 16, verses 17 and 18, talking about signs for believers casting out demons, handling deadly threats without harm. These passages really seem to lay groundwork for the idea we're exploring here.
Yeah, they do. And it brings up a really important question, doesn't it? If these creatures are metaphors, what kind of authority are we actually discussing here? What does that mean within this framework?
Right. And that's where it gets really interesting, I think. Our sources describe believers not simply as survivors, just getting through things, but as overcomers, empowered to stand boldly.
It's about understanding something called delegated authority. But what does that actually mean? Delegated authority.
That's a great question. So when the sources talk about delegated authority, it's not like legal power or political power. It's more about a belief that individuals, through their faith, are sort of entrusted with a spiritual capacity, a capacity to confront and overcome challenges, feeling empowered by, well, a higher source. It's rooted in conviction, not physical strength or worldly status.
So it's an internal conviction leading to external action. In a way, yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this whole concept of authority, it stems from a belief system that really encourages taking a firm stand, but through spiritual means. You mentioned Ephesians 6:013, putting on the full armor of God to stand firm. That's part of it. And Isaiah 54:710, declaring no weapon formed against you shall prosper.
Yeah.
The insight here really is this potential shift in perception. Seeing challenges not just as roadblocks, but as opportunities to exercise this believed spiritual power.
That definitely offers a distinct way to approach difficulties. I'm curious, though, how do the sources show this playing out? How do these principles translate into actual experiences people have? What does this authority look like when it's in action?
That's an excellent point. And this is where the theory gets really vivid, We have some compelling stories documented in our readings. Take, for example, the story of a woman in Kenya. She was falsely accused of witchcraft, which is obviously a very serious situation. Our source details how her unwavering conviction, her steadfast faith, even when facing intense public pressure, that was reportedly seen as the key thing, the catalyst for her eventual vindication. It highlights this principle of spiritual resilience against accusation.
Wow. Okay. That's powerful.
It is. And then there's another striking account, this time about a young man on the Suriname-Guyana border. He was apparently faced with some kind of gang-related trap, a dangerous situation. But our sources report that instead of retaliating, he chose the path of fasting and prayer. And according to these accounts, that decision reportedly led to his unexpected deliverance from that threat.
So a conscious choice for a spiritual response over a physical one.
Exactly. And then there's the experience of a missionary team in France. Our sources recount how their outreach van got surrounded by protesters. A tense, potentially dangerous moment. What did the team do? Well, they reportedly responded by singing Psalm 91 aloud. Just singing it. And according to the account, their vehicle was left completely unharmed. It's presented as an example of belief in divine intervention, even right there in a public confrontation. These examples, they really highlight how these principles are understood to manifest in, well, real-world scenarios.
Okay, those are vivid examples. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, maybe in your own life? How do the sources suggest we might, identify these lions and serpents in our own day-to-day experience?
Yeah, the material helps us think about this in pretty practical terms. The lions, they might represent things like, say, aggressive adversaries at work, or maybe ongoing family conflicts, even broader systemic issues like political oppression, perhaps. They're the things that are loud, intimidating, the stuff that confronts you directly.
The roaring threats, got it, and the serpents.
The serpents, as we discussed, are understood to be more subtle, often internal. They could be things like, self-defeating thoughts, maybe lies you tell yourself, persistent shame, perhaps, or paralyzing fear, that everyday discouragement that can creep in, even struggles with addiction. These are the things that might undermine you more quietly, often from within.
That makes sense. The loud and the quiet threats.
Right, and it prompts a reflection, doesn't it, using this interpretive lens? What lion might have been roaring in your life recently, or maybe what snake, what hidden pattern or fear has been hiding beneath your decisions or your general outlook?
The sources also point to other scriptural ideas to maybe meditate on here, like 2 Corinthians 10.4, which talks about weapons of warfare not being carnal, not physical, but spiritual, powerful for pulling down strongholds. And Romans 8.37, which famously says, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. It really emphasizes approaching conflict from this non-physical spiritual perspective as a core tenet of this belief system.
Absolutely. And this concept of authority, as it's explored in the material, it really seems to transcend borders, doesn't it? Geographical boundaries, socioeconomic status. The stories presented come from all over. We see examples from current events cited that illustrate its global application.
Yeah, like in Cameroon, there's an account of a Christian medical team providing aid during, I think it was flood crises. And they reportedly experienced not just divine provision, but also instances of profound healing right in the middle of a cholera outbreak. The source presents this as an example of this spiritual authority being exercised even in a major health crisis.
It does. Or think about Haiti. The sources mention that despite, extreme poverty and intense raids, local churches there continue holding night prayers. They're drawing on Psalm 91's promise, seeing it as a source of strength and protection, even in what seem like overwhelming circumstances. It's presented as this real testament to enduring faith against the odds.
And even closer to home for many of our listeners, perhaps, in the United Kingdom. Our sources highlight stories of Christian youth witnessing boldly on university campuses, and they've testified to seeing lives transformed, even amidst what's often described as growing secularism. These stories, taken together, they really show how this idea of authority is understood and applied in such diverse, often very challenging situations. It offers quite an inspiring perspective for those who hold this belief. So, wrapping things up a bit, what have we learned about this idea of walking in authority based on the material we've explored? It seems to be about, first, recognizing these metaphorical lions and serpents in your own life, the overt aggressors and the subtle deceptions, and then understanding the perspective that you can face them, not from a place of weakness, but from a place of empowered strength, rooted in this specific belief system.
Exactly. It's framed as moving from a mindset of just being a survivor to actively being an overcomer. That's how the sources articulate it. And the material offers some, practical ways people might try to apply this perspective daily. Things like affirming certain beliefs, I walk in God's authority, or no weapon, lion, or serpent will prosper against me, and I tread boldly, not fearfully.
Right, affirmations.
Yeah.
And it also suggests some concrete actions for those who want to apply these principles. Things like maybe praying Psalm 91 daily over your family, your community, even your nation, or joining a local prayer group or maybe an online one, and kind of declaring your authority through your actions too, like by helping others, speaking truth as you see it, and standing firm in your convictions.
Yeah. I think this deep dive has really shown us how one ancient verse can be interpreted to provide this whole framework, a framework for navigating complex modern challenges, encouraging a perspective of, well, resilience and empowerment, regardless of the external circumstances someone might be facing.
So as you reflect on all this, maybe consider this. In what unexpected areas of your life might a renewed sense of authority, understood in this way, help you face challenges? Challenges you previously felt perhaps overwhelmed by. What possibilities might open up if you stop seeing yourself mainly as a target and start seeing yourself through this lens as someone who can tread boldly? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Song 91.13 and its interpretations. Until next time, remain curious, stay resilient, and keep exploring these profound ideas.